and welcome to Idiots versus Idiots. My name is Danny. With me, as always, my large and 51% in charge co-host. We are the idiot savants of this here podcast where we talk about business and marketplace news. The big man hates that crazy thing.
It's marketing. What's the difference between marketing and marketplace? What's the difference, Danny? Explain it to us all.
Okay. Well, the marketplace is general, nondescript thing where business is happening. Marketing is the attempt. It's branding. It's selling. It's all of those. It's two different elements of business. Like being a marketing podcast, we would sit and talk about logos and advertising.
I like logos. Why can't we talk? So now we're business, marketplace, and marketing?
No, we're not.
That's too much? Why not?
I wanted the whole point of the narrow focus of this podcast was because when you engage in a venture, you have to have a very, very specific narrow market. Listen, we're going to talk about a lot of other things. It used to grow. Hey, guess what? We're even adding another podcast to our network here. But what I'm saying is it's narrow for a reason. If someone comes to you and they say, I have this new business I'm starting, and you go, hey, who's your target market? And he goes, everybody. That guy's going to fail. Whatever business he's in, going to fail.
Very true. Very true. Very true.
Okay.
I agree,
our first story,
but still.
Our first story about electric vaporware. Are you excited? I'm pumped about this story.
Okay, can we attack this as two different stories, not just one? Because it really is.
Okay,
the vaporware you're talking about, electric cars, is really two companies.
So we're talking right now about Lucid is going public with an S-Pack.
Right.
A reverse merger. And then Rivian is going the IPO route at a $50 billion value. Lucid's S-Pack is official at $24 billion. And here's it's two separate stories, but they're too similar, yet two separate segments. Fair enough?
Well, no, and I don't mean two separate segments. What I'm talking about is let's start with Rivian because they're kind of going, even though yes they go under the same umbrella, and I think vaporware is a good term to use because this is my problem with both of these. Right. Neither of these companies currently exist except for on paper. You're drinking a liquid death because it's a logo on a can that has been sold to you. You have a product in your hand. Yes. Both of these companies are intellectual property.
Right. So my biggest beef with and I'm a car guy, and I've said conflicting things about electric cars on this podcast, but the main thing I'm walking away with, or the main point is, I'm not opposed to electric cars, and you may see me someday in the hills of Central Texas in an electric truck. Okay, that doesn't mean that probably. I don't have, 60s era muscle cars, 90s era JDM cars in my garage. It means on a day-to-day basis, vehicle for a lot of different reasons. That all being said, I can't go buy a Rivian anywhere, and it's not that they're out of stock. It's not that it's a Supreme bag. It's not that it's an exclusive. It's not a stainless steel professional Rolex.
No.
It's none of these things. It doesn't exist.
Well, and we have no idea when. We have no idea when it will exist either. So here's the deal. So at least with Rivian, you can say that it's backed by Amazon and Ford, right? Which obviously give it some credibility. They have a standing order from Amazon for, I think, 100,000 custom electric vans, right? That's a pretty big order.
Listen, here's what that order means. Zippity zop zooey. It doesn't mean nothing. You know why?
Well, no. Until they can produce the product, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't exist. An order is hypothetical, not real. So what's happened is the tech bubble has leaked and it's spilled onto other industries. This is one of those industries. And Elon Musk is partly to not blame. He's part of the reason why these electric car companies are so hot. They don't sell a product. I can't go anywhere and buy a Rivian. What Tesla
this is why you have to be careful. And this is I'm gonna say something here that Danny doesn't like because of his not political views but money views. In that
I don't like anything you say, so what's
that is true. So I'm generalizing here. Is these companies? What is the point of going IPO, of going SPAC, of any of this? It's rich people raising capital, right? Would this company be going public right now if there wasn't 3 companies last year that all raised more than several $billion in very similar technologies in China, right? And non-existent car companies that raised billions of dollars from investors.
Xpeng.
A bunch of them, right? That from investors, and all of that is raising billions of dollars for these companies that may or may not ever deliver a product. And if they don't ever create a product or create a good product, ultimately their stock price will be worth 0, but billionaires still made billions. You see what I'm saying? It's a way to create money in.
Listen, I don't disagree with that necessarily. I just don't understand who's going to buy this stock.
Well, okay, so everyone, right? So with Rivian, you've got Amazon and Ford that are going to do everything they can to get people to buy the stock, because every stock that's sold is less money that they have to invest in the company to get to a product, right? And that's why I say separate. Lucid's not that way.
I know. Okay, so Henry Ford, one of Henry Ford's great grandnieces or granddaughters or somebody is on the board of Rivian, and Rivian actually had a tie-up to an electric SUV and truck for Lincoln. And so what the wider marketplace doesn't comprehend about the car business is you can approach it from a tech angle, like all of these electric cars are approached from the textile industry, not textile, the style of tech, in the same vein that tech, okay,
in the mid-90s,
hyper growth. We're gonna raise $1 bajillion, and it's hype.
In mid-90s, that's all these tech companies were that way.
Always hype. It's theoretical, non-literal value. I think that's a phrase I've coined on this podcast before.
Yeah.
But the point is, they cannot comprehend what it's going to take to erect an entire infrastructure, not just to charge these vehicles, but to maintain them, to sell them, and to service them, and to finance them. And that's where I think a lot of these plays are going to be, just like General Motors and Nikola. It's going to be one of those things where they're going to flame out, and one of the bigger players is going to come and scoop up their technology.
Ultimately, it's going to have Ford on the side. It's going to have General Motors on the side. All of that, because I believe the same thing. They're going to use these as ways to generate an influx to pay for the research and development. And then ultimately, they're going to come down in stock price until a General Motors says, you know what? Thank you, and scoop.
We're going to buy you.
Ford on this one. Thank you, and scoop. Yeah. But who gets left out in that is the shareholder themselves. Now, let's talk about Lucid a little bit. Lucid is going the SPAC route. It's essentially merging with what's called Churchill Capital 4, which is on the NASDAQ, CCIV.
Right.
But since the article you originally sent me on this, there's been an update. They've announced that merger. It's no longer in theory. It's going to happen. And since then, the stock has dropped by 50%. Now, here's why. The initial evaluation that CCIV was telling its shareholders was $100 billion. We think this company is worth $100 billion. When the official paperwork got filed and stuff like that, the evaluation between $24 and $25 billion. So,
again, the big man uses the term valuation.
Valuation.
I didn't bring it up. I didn't say it. I'm just
as they were
time.
pushing the marketing, as CCIV has been pushing for the last month and a half in their marketing, buy our stock because we're gonna merge with.
And it's gonna be $100 billion,
and it's gonna be worth $100 billion, and that stock has been going like this, right, for 30 days. It's been going up, all the way up to just above $60 a share. Right. Again, this valuation comes in at 24, 25, and then all of a sudden that valuation drops to where it should be for a company of that size, right? Down to half. But if you bought it at 45, 55, 65, now again, I told Danny before we started this, kind of getting on the Idiots versus Idiots stock podcast here, and we've actually got another story about stock today, but the point is, I want to get these kind of things out there because these are fundamentals of stock investing. Right. That, again, if you just read we live in a headline news world, today's world, right? We're all thumbing through our phones.
Most people don't read past the headline.
Right. So if you read a headline 2 weeks ago that said CCIV is gonna merge with, Rivian, and it's gonna be worth $150 a share before. I'm sorry, Lucid is going to merge with CCIV by the end of the year, and it's going to be worth $100 billion, right? Which means the stock price probably between $60 and $100 a share, and you bought it at $50 a share, and you wake up 2 weeks later, guess what? You read, merger is going to happen. It's definite. And then you check your stock account, and it's half of what you thought it was. Yeah. Because you didn't understand the difference between $25 billion and $100 billion, or you didn't even get there in the story.
And let me just say this much. What's unfortunate for Lucid is they say they're coming out with a sedan this year. God only knows. We've been promised a vehicle from them. They took $1 billion from the Sovereign Wealth Fund, Saudi Arabia. Or sorry, not Sovereign Wealth Fund, the Public Investment Fund. I mean, these raises are absurd to me. It makes no sense. Again, another problem that Lucid has is it's coming out with a sedan. We live in everybody wants an SUV crossover. We want tall wagons, okay? Our parents and grandparents drove wagons. We want tall wagons. And the point is they're going to be at a huge deficit until they can get there. And listen, here's the other thing, though.
Yeah.
The Lucid Air sedan actually looks better than the Tesla Model S. The Tesla Model S is super old.
Well,
but
okay.
Here's the difference.
Yeah.
You can go look at you can go to a showroom right now, I think in Phoenix or Las Vegas. You can look Lucid Air. You can go to a showroom in a bunch of cities in the United States and buy a Model S.
Sure,
so
absolutely.
Wrapping this story up, let's draw the conclusion here. You can't buy any of these things.
But they're worth $50 and $24 billion apparently. And guess what? That's after funding. Venture capitalist funding. Rivian, as of January of 2021, had already pulled in $26.7 billion in venture capital. It's not even an IPO.
I know.
$26 billion.
And in one of our previous episodes, I had talked about how Bill Gates had given some seed money to Facebook, and he purchased 1% of it. And everyone thought at that point, I think it ended up valuing the company at $200 million or something like that, something absurd. And it hadn't taken it a dime, and they had very structured user growth. And it seemed so perplexing. He's playing a game. And listen, I'm all for games. I'm a true free market, laissez-faire capital. Okay.
How many numbers, or what's the number on Scrabble you would get for the word perplexing?
I don't know.
That's a lot of perplexing. Very good word there, Danny. That's all I'm saying. Very good word. Go ahead. Go ahead with your perplexion.
No, but it was perplexing. But to the average market, it's perplexing. But to the person who understands the business they're in, which is the game, they're saying
it is.
So here's what happens when he owns 1% of this company hypothetically it was valued at $200 million based on his investment. The next person, you never take a down round in venture capital. In the game of venture capital, you're out there raising money. Never want to do a down round. So if you do a seed round or a Series A, your valuation has to go up on your next raise. Otherwise, if you take a down round, if you're Uber or somebody and you end up taking a down round in venture capital, it means that your business is circling the drain. So,
well, because in the venture capital stage, you don't make money. You're not making money.
But it means that you're circling the drain. So your existing investors might signal to the market. They might invest again in a different round in order to signal to the market that the business will well. We're going to make tons of money. And that's all this is. Okay?
That's all this is.
Because these tech guys, this isn't laptops, this is cell phones, this is software. Software as a service. It's not an app. Okay? We're not trying to scale on Amazon Web Services. We're not trying to scale on Azure. When you scale an electric car company, brick and mortar, hard, takes bodies.
They have to be built, or the infrastructure to build them has to be built. The people to build the infrastructure has to be built.
You have to find the nerds that can build the robots that are going to build the car. Then you have to educate mechanics, and so
yes. So that's before that's even once you've designed it, you've got to have somebody to be able to fix it. Yeah. Like that in the masses around the country. So I can't buy a Lucid vehicle if there's no one to repair it if it breaks in a month or 6 months or a year.
So listen, this kind of model works perfectly fine if you're Koenigsegg and you sell $1 million hypercar. Guess what? The guy who buys the $1 million hypercar drives it once a year, tows it to he trailers it somewhere, and if he has a problem, you know what they do? They just ship the car back to the factory. Yeah, it costs $100,000, but
they don't care.
They don't care. The problem, so the disconnect in this market in the electric car business, and why I am rather bearish on the electric car. I'm bullish on electric cars. I'm bearish on the business.
Yes. See, that's a difference. That's a difference. Most people have that opposite.
Yeah, because people don't. I think electric cars are, what I do really believe is the longer term future is going to be like the gas electric hybrid. Okay, it's going to be a gas generator up front where the existing engine is. You're going to have batteries in the trunk. Small 1 single liter 3-cylinder is going to charge just like the Chevy Volt or the Chevy Bolt, because that the infrastructure that people think, the majority of human beings live in populated cities, okay? But the diversity of character of those people does not lead to enough sales because of range anxiety, because it's a new product. You're not going to hit critical mass until you have infrastructure. And that infrastructure, the scaling of that infrastructure, is incalculable to people who are approaching this way they're approaching tech investing.
Or somebody develops in some way an electric engine that can go in an existing car. If you can completely switch, no, but I'm saying and create a similar product. If General Motors can pull out its, gas engine and plop in an electric engine for you instead at a very similar price point, that's a game changer. Because then you're putting an electric, a reliable electric engine in a Chevrolet Silverado, right? The existing, right? Then you take advantage of everything else.
And one of those companies, there isn't a company out there. Maybe it's Lordstown or somebody else, that did that, where they bought Silverados. But here's the problem: you still have to figure out how to charge that thing. Okay.
Right.
And if you have 150 mile of range, I'm afraid to go 60 miles if I only have 150 mile range.
Oh yeah, hell, in my gas engine, I don't get below a quarter of a tank. Okay, I was taught that since I was little, and there's a reason for it. So,
and listen, you only have to run out of gas one time. I grew up in the Midwest. one time in one winter I ran out of gas. I was on the way somewhere, on the way to the gym, and I pulled into the gas station. I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna get gas after I'm done with the gym. Didn't make it to the gym. Okay.
Yeah.
I had to call somebody. I had to call the old man. He had to come help me gas from the gas station. Guess what? On the drive back to my car on the side of the road, I learned very quickly I will never be doing this again.
Hey, y'all know, look, most of you know if you listen to this podcast for a while or you know me, you know I grew up out in the country, right, outside of Dallas. And the first time I ran out of gas, there weren't no cell phones.
That's right. There weren't no cell phones.
At least for us poor folks, okay? Right. So there wasn't no cell phones. There wasn't me calling daddy. There wasn't me calling nobody. My happy out in the middle of nowhere butt had to walk to the nearest gas station and get gas and walk my happy butt back. Okay, but again, you don't have to, we have cell phones in today's world, but
the reality
the anxiety is still there.
Well, here's the other thing. There are currently mobile charging stations that are going up where they have a diesel generator creating electricity, and the diesel generator creating electricity charges the car. Now, just going to go out there, say, hey, that's a hat on a hat. Doesn't make sense. Okay? There's no point. You can just drive a diesel car.
Look, I'm going to say this before we move on, and this is idiots versus idiots because I don't know anything about... I know how to repair a car. I know how to replace just about anything on a car, but as far as the engineering of how electric engines or gas engines or whatever, as far as how to design them, no clue. Yeah. My point, though, is I have an alternator in my truck that when I turn on the car, it powers everything in my car, including recharging my battery. Right. How in 2021 do we not have an electric motor that has a generator that charges it, that goes infinitely?
Well, no, we do.
How is part of this conspiracy theory of in my head is they're trying to make a car that can only go a certain amount of miles and trying to make a car that you buy a car and goes wherever you want to go whenever you want to go. Right, how can we not generate enough energy with the car to power the car?
Yeah, those exist, right? It's called the Chevy Bolt and the Chevy Volt. Those had very small electric gas generators that powered the battery. Jay Leno has one, and they're coming out with a new Bolt. So right now you can, as cheap as $50 a month, you can go lease one. This is idiots versus idiots. They're not sponsoring us. We're actually going to talk about a sponsor right now, but
But you get where I'm coming from. It sounds like a conspiracy theory to me that we have these two technologies. How have we not put them in? And not even gas powered. You realize that something like 80% of our power is generated in the United States by motion, whether it's through dams or whatever. Yeah. We have 4 spinning wheels on every car that goes out. We're creating motion as we drive. Right. How is that not used to generate power to generate your car?
So, like Prius, Toyota's already doing the brand new minivan only comes in a hybrid, right? So they're doing the 4-cylinder and hybrid combination, and not the same thing as a generator, but it is kind of generating electric power. So it is interesting. But
anyway, we can move on. We've gotten far off of Rivian and Lucid, but y'all all get our points. It's Vaporware. I think they're way too risky to spend my money on stock when it does IPO or SPAC. It would be a great short term, just like if I could catch it in the beginning and it doubles over the first 6 months, I would take my money out and run, right? Or something like that.
A lot of people did that when they doubled their money in Tesla, and they're all beating themselves over the head because stonks only go up, boys. But I want to talk to you about liquid death. I'm sure you did not know this, but on Idiots versus Idiots, we are death peddlers. That's right. We are peddling the death of plastic pollution. Not only does liquid death murder your thirst, 10% of every can sold goes to end plastic pollution. Here, your water system. Water delivery. I drink a lot more water because... Now, if you use code idiots10 on liquiddeath.com, get 2 free koozies. We actually have to change the thing on the bottom.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Look at me. I'm an idiot.
Well, what's new? It's a podcast called Idiots versus Idiots. My expectations have never changed. But this next story is
hey, the
Canopy.
2 koozies are probably worth more than 10% off. I'm just saying.
That's why they're giving you 2 koozies, man. Next story is our good friends over at Canopy. If you didn't know, Canopy is a special herbal remedies company. And I can't even say the other words that we would normally say.
Well, we have to, because if you're going to tell people, look, about a company, a publicly traded company, the Toronto Stock Exchange, the actual stock ticker on the Toronto Stock Exchange for Canopy Growth is WEED, WEED. That is the stock ticker.
Right.
Okay. I was actually really surprised that Danny wanted to talk about this story, because
why wouldn't they want to talk about it?
Well, because look, again, Danny says he tells people that he's never done any drugs in his whole life.
I've never had.
And that he says that over and over. I think it's just because we're recording, so he's a big fat liar. But the point though is
it's not true.
This kind of goes into, we were just talking about vaporware, no pun intended here, right? But this is another kind of example, like Rivian and Lucid, only in that this definitely has a product, right? These people are selling medical, right, and medicinal, cannabis.
Yeah.
The point though is you're talking about a company right here that's a publicly traded company that last year, 2020, right, it lost $829 million.
Hey,
it's a publicly traded company.
That makes Dan Bilzerian's $50 million loss look like nothing.
Right. So this company went from 2019 losing $109 million to losing $800 million last year. Now,
let me tell you something what's complicated with that story to me. Just feels like, how do you lose money selling cannabis?
Well, again, now this is how most companies do work, right? We talk about venture capitalists and how that gets to their...
This is a high growth.
Yeah.
This is a high growth
infrastructure, right? Yeah. Building things, widening. Here's the point. They are literally, being a publicly traded company, one of the big downsides once you go, which is why a lot of these companies don't go IPO or SPAC until they're either profitable or very close to it. They don't want anybody in their books to know what they're blowing money on, right? So the danger is once you go public, all of that stuff's open to shareholders, right? You have to put quarterly out there and stuff.
And mind you, this is a Canadian company. This is on the Canadian Stock Exchange because they have full legalization in Canada. Okay, we don't yet. We'll see. The incoming AG is saying in the United States that he's not going to pursue prosecution for cannabis in states where
that's still far away from legalization, man. And Senate Majority
Leader in the right direction.
Chuck Schumer and several Democrats have come on record saying that they are trying to push legalization this year, like nationwide legalization. Now, what that means, legalization, whether that's only medicinal, not necessarily recreational, but here's the point. So they are saying being a publicly...
When California had medicinal legalization, it's like those pain clinics down in Florida. You just go, my eye hurts. Well, here you go. You need a bunch of herbs.
Look, I used to have this debate when I used to teach about this. Look, legalization has been around by state for, 15 years now, I think. I don't remember which state was first, but it doesn't matter. The point is, I used to have this debate with my students when we would get to these kind of medications. And the point being is, yes, there are several states, I think 20-something now, that have some form of legalized cannabis. The problem is that is still a state rule. The national law still says the DEA can still come arrest you.
Yeah.
It is a matter of timing. Even in Colorado, there have been several people arrested for marijuana, and they had it, as far as the state was concerned, legally. They have shut down complete stores or whatever, and they are so looked at. So the point, though, is this is a publicly traded company that says it's not going to be profitable. It doesn't even plan to be profitable until end of 2022.
Yeah, which, listen, here's what I don't get, right? And this is where I'm stuck. This is a product that has historically in Canada and the United States and the Western world had to be sold under the cover of night, word of mouth.
Right.
So it's not a product that has historically needed a ton of public advertising. You can't go out there because you're legally prohibited from advertising. You have this is the opposite of advertising. You have to be like, oh, like, got a guy? I don't know what you're talking about.
I still think that's the case, even in states that it's legal. I don't think they can advertise because it is still nationally illegal.
And so they still have banking problems, right? A lot of these people in that business, they can't bank, so they're like the industry, the industrialists to the south of us. Yep. They're a full cash operation because they can't go to a bank.
They can't use credit cards.
Yeah.
They can't go use any bank that's backed by the federal government, which has caused essentially credit unions or those types of services to pop up that charge exorbitant fees, which they don't care about because they can't do anything else other than stick the cash in a safe somewhere. You know what I mean?
So this company saying we're not going to be profitable to next year. What did you say? You said 800 million. They lost almost $1 billion.
Yeah, last year alone. Now look, their profits are obviously steadily growing, right? Just in the last quarter, they upped their profits 150% year over year, which means they essentially made $20 billion last year. Or $20 billion in sales last quarter. That's why they think they'll be profitable. Here's what this means. This means that a company is planning for at least the next 2 years to continue to blow through money to whether it's buying up inventory, growing infrastructure, whatever, even though their sales is $20 billion a quarter.
And again, here's what is perplexing about this to me. An industry, I was trying to get to this point, but I didn't get to it.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not your fault. It is, but I'll live. This industry had to be cash flow positive and had to be profitable for the majority of its existence on this planet, because you can't go to a venture capitalist and borrow. You can't go to a bank and borrow for something that's illegal. So it is mind-boggling to me that an industry achieves legalization. So now it's on paper, it's legit, and all of a sudden can't make any money.
We were just talking about it on all these companies. It's not about they're losing money. It's, if you believe in conspiracy theories, it's almost on purpose because it's expected.
They are. It's 100%.
It's going into somebody's pockets, right? It's going into somebody's pockets. Listen, it's just paperwork.
Yeah, it's exactly. It is. We're moving the money from one pocket to my pocket, and that there's that.
And I'm a contractor.
Yeah.
That is getting paid to do a job.
Yeah. So there's that scene in Wolf of Wall Street where Matthew McConaughey is explaining to Leonardo DiCaprio. He's like, the goal is want to get the money from their pocket to your pocket. That's all you got to do all day.
That's
man.
That's it.
That's
right?
what this all feels like.
That's all it is.
And I was telling you before we hit record that the average consumer in this country does not understand not only that value is subjective, and that's the first principle of economics, that most of our economy make-believe, right? And it is what it is. I'm not trying to be critical I'm just saying you got two choices. You have to either go, nope, that's fake, Danny's wrong, he's insane, what he's saying is crazy, or you have to, you got to see the writing on the wall and say the economy.
Well, you are in fact an idiot. You are in fact an idiot.
True.
Okay, it's just the way it is. But look, out of the however many states, 20-something states that have legalized it, why have they legalized it? Because of taxes.
Money.
It's money. It's a bankroll. Not a single state would go against the national government on anything if it meant there was a chance they weren't going to make a junk ton of money.
Right.
Why do states have gambling? Not because it's convenient for them, not because it brings in the right kind of people to pay taxes. Yeah. It's because the gambling itself pays the state a junk ton of taxes, right? So this is that same way. The national government would eventually come on board because it means money. taxes. They'll tax the living daylights out of it, just like they do cigarettes, just like they do alcohol. And this is, look, I'm one of those, legalize everything. Tax it, and guess what? It makes it safer for everyone. Everybody.
If, again, and this isn't a political show, but if I make a slightly political statement, we're all better off if, Meth Head Mike doesn't have to, he can just go to Walgreens and buy what he's already going to do it anyway. Okay? We can, and you're telling me
that the stuff he's going to get from Walgreens is safe. It's not going to, it's not going to be laced with some kind of toxin because it was cheaper or something.
And let me tell you something, okay? Pfizer and all these big drug companies, they're already selling people heroin. You just call it OxyContin. Let them sell the real stuff, okay? People want the real goods. They're going to do it anyway. The benefit for the wider population is this guy now isn't worried about he can't get a job, so he doesn't have to hide it. Listen, there's a Harvard professor who's like, I do H once a week just to relax. I'm like, hey man, whatever works for you. You're missing a couple teeth, so.
Canopy Growth is not only doing this now in Canada, and there's a couple of companies doing this in Canada where cannabis is legal. What they are is they're doing and setting up because they think America's going to go green, as they say. And if it does, they want to pounce on it. They want to have everything ready to go, yes, I'm here. I'm ready. And guess what? Look, I'm a venture capitalist to a certain degree. It ever comes legal in Texas, I guarantee you I've got to, you know what I mean, 15 people that I'm going to get on the phone within the first 24 hours and say, what leases are we signing and whatever. Not because I'm a big fan of smoking weed. I don't smoke cannabis at all. I don't take CBD or anything else. That doesn't mean I wouldn't make money off of it, brother.
Yeah, so let me tell you something. When Nevada legalized, and it was on the ballot, I was watching it very closely. I was in Texas. I was in Austin. And I'm more of a Las Vegas guy than I am an Austin guy. When I first moved to Austin, and all my friends are like, oh, I hear they have great live music. I'm like, if one more person tells me about the live music, you people have never even been to our fine city. You tell me about the live music one more time. I will torture you. I cannot.
That's marketing. That is marketing, right? That's not marketplace. That's marketing.
That's right. That is marketing. Gotcha. And so I just came to Austin for the tech, right? But when I found out that Nevada was going towards legalization, I was like, that means the Las Vegas market, this is already a city designed around vices. Here's an extra one. I was like, I could go be the cannabis king of Nevada. Okay. I like living in the desert. But I ultimately didn't do it, and I feel exactly the same way you do. When gambling or cannabis becomes legal in Texas, I'll own that. I'll be that guy. I'm ready to be that guy. Nonetheless, I think, let's we got two other stories we want to talk about. Let's transition to those. But first, we got to hear from Big Man.
Danny loves for me to read my own spots here, as it were. So right now we're going to talk about our next sponsor of the Idiots vs. Idiots podcast is Big Man Gear. Big Man Gear is the big man, that's me, idea of a funny merch brand. You know what? You suck. Danny wrote this, of course. I just have to read it. It's very corny, dad jokey, and Generation X, not Boomer, meme on t-shirts for sale at Amazon Prime. You can currently buy the unapproved because Danny doesn't like it, but we don't care what he thinks. Idiots versus Idiots logo tee that Danny absolute hates. That is available at bigmangear.com, or you can go to your Amazon app and just type in Big Man Gear and you'll find the shirts and stuff like that. I will try to do a better job in the future of updating those shirts as we go along with some of the stupid crap that Danny says.
Okay. Well, we'll see about that, because most of everything I say is genius because I'm a big brain.
You're at least told that by your mother.
Not really. My mom's more of putting me in my place kind of guy.
All right, go ahead. What do we have next?
I think this is a super interesting story. Microsoft wants to buy interest?
Well, okay, first of all, Microsoft wants to buy everyone. everybody, anything that's an app or a web-based, cloud-based, they would love to just write you a check right now, today. They've talked to everybody. They've talked to TikTok, right? They've talked to everybody that they can. Here's what I really found interesting about this story, because Danny sent the story to me with that question mark, and I was like, I haven't heard this at all, that Microsoft wants to buy Pinterest. And what I learned by reading the story is two things. One, like I said, Microsoft wants to buy everybody. And two, that still, as of 2021, Pinterest, as of last month, end of January, still has 460 million people using its website. Who the hell? I don't know anybody that uses Pinterest.
I mean, your wife doesn't. I don't think you do, but your wife doesn't know.
No, my wife doesn't use Pinterest at all. I don't know anybody. Like, the only thing, look, there was a time where I get it, like, suburban housewives all across America were using it to share recipes and interior design ideas. And there was even a time and place where it was kind of being used by realtors for marketing and stuff like that. But that was years ago. And for Pinterest to still have 400 plus million unique users going to their website every single month is mind-boggling to me. But Microsoft, and I don't, look, and what I read is this is not a current thing. Microsoft's constantly reaching out to all.
Yeah, and they try to buy Pinterest at a $51 billion value.
Again, these valuations are crazy.
But the point of it was, just like you said, Microsoft Azure is a cloud player. They're a player in corporate or enterprise cloud, which is something that the average entrepreneur has no concept of, in the sense that the average American, we're not even a quarter of the way there.
No, but that's why Microsoft wants these companies, is these are all companies it can run on its cloud service.
Right.
For next to nothing, a fraction of pennies to run. And like, Pinterest makes sense to me from a twofold. One, again, they can acquire it even for billions of dollars at an overinflated rate and get these users and the data of these users. And two, currently Pinterest is ran on Amazon Web Services, AWS, so they would not only be purchasing something that cost them next to nothing to run, but they would be acquiring something from a competitor. They would be acquiring market share.
Yeah, that's what the play is. And it looks like there's an update to the story, because we prepped these. I shouldn't say we. I prepped these stories well in advance.
Yep.
Update to the story. Talks didn't go well. Microsoft isn't going to buy them. But the point is, when Microsoft attempted to buy TikTok's Western Hemisphere business, because they weren't going to buy the entire company. It was just going to be the users in a bunch of different countries: New Zealand, Australia, the U.S., I think India also.
Places that made sense. Big markets.
It probably just got their mind rolling about, like, hey, what other businesses we buy that would serve to, because here's all they're doing. They're buying market share from AWS. Because AWS has a chokehold on the industry. It just has servers. It just has the space, right?
Right.
So Azure is trying to grow and compete in this industry because, listen, a lot of tech companies that got into this business, like Hewlett-Packard's entire business is enterprise cloud, right? Mm-hmm. Not their entire business. They still sell laptops and stuff, but a lot of their business is enterprise cloud and enterprise service. So they're also relocating to Texas, by the way. But the point is, this is such a huge industry. And like I said, like, if I had a couple $200,000 sitting around in cash, I'm not going to go try to buy a piece of real estate with it. Well, I'm not going to try to buy a house or residential real estate. I'm going to go try to find somewhere where I can set up a server farm, because it's not that. And what people don't maybe not understand is a lot of these server farms are owned and operated by third parties. You just call up Azure, you just call up AWS, and they go, oh, okay, yeah.
you have to think of it as virtual real estate, right? And that's what, look, people don't understand this. If I say, okay, hey, what's the first thing that comes to mind when I say Amazon? You think delivery to my house every other day, right? Or whatever, all the products that they sell.
Well,
But
maybe
their
at your house it's every other day.
Yeah. Well, their most profitable business is AWS. Yeah. By a lot. Their most by a lot. Like, that's the number one by a lot. And it's because it's very low cost to maintain, and it's virtual real estate. That same server can be used for a billion different apps at any given time, depending on what it's being used for. And so it's virtual real estate. And all I need to do to have more real estate, because the old saying is, but the reason you can buy real estate in the world and it always goes up in value is because there's only a certain amount. And that doesn't exist in the virtual space. Right? Another server gives me another world for people to buy, and on and on and on and on. If the world keeps spinning the way it's spinning, and this kind of goes back to the reason, they can get a $50 billion valuation for, Rivian, and the reason Microsoft they paid LinkedIn $26 billion, ZeniMax $7.5 billion. Right. The reason that is the case is because if the world keeps spinning the way it's currently spinning and the way we use technology and stuff like that, it's only going to penetrate our lives more, not less. Right. And in that world, in that virtual world that we're all growing more and more, that we become reliant on, we're recording this podcast from two completely different places. Correct. That is really the investment in the real estate of the future. That's what they're doing. They want to be the biggest players in what you utilize. It's the what's the movie, the cartoon movie with the little robot?
WALL-E?
Yeah, WALL-E. It's WALL-E. Remember how everything has B&G on it, right? Everything's B&G. The Walmart's B&G. And where you get your drink is B&G. Everything's B&G. This is Microsoft, Google, and Amazon's ball, right?
Yeah, it really.
They're all fighting to be that company of the future.
There's a cloud player out somewhere in Texas, San Antonio, and partly in Austin too. I can't remember their name off the top of my head. But I just don't think that...
something Stack or something like that. They started out in San Antonio.
Yeah.
And then they grew into Austin, but I think they were bought out.
Were they?
Yeah, I think they were bought out. I remember that, but I think they were bought out because at one point they were going to use... what's the mall here in Northeast Austin that?
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
They were gonna literally buy that mall because it was empty.
The Homestead
right?
or something. It's a Homestead.
Yeah, they were gonna buy it and use it as a new company headquarters and server farm. And then it ended up getting turned into a community college instead. I think because that company got bought. But anyway, the point is look, server rooms and companies have always been the most expensive price per square foot. Right? And that was just on the company. We're just now doing it worldwide. And, as we talked about, rack space, that's what it is. Yeah. But as we turn around and we move forward, our podcast last week or week before last was about Starlink, right? More people getting online at quicker speeds. That's just even better.
Right.
Those same servers right there in California can link up through Starlink to anybody anywhere in the world and provide them their home cooking techniques by Martha Stewart. I'm sure that's really helpful in, deep woods, Australia. But hey, whatever.
Yeah. By the way, the big man is incorrect. Rackspace, in fact, is not. They're not going to acquire it. It did go public.
Oh, is that what happened? Sorry, I apologize.
It's fine. You don't know what you're talking about most of the time. That's to be expected. Hey, before we jump into this last story, I want to tell you about a product company that is near and dear to my heart, Rise Lentless. The reason it's so close to my heart is because it's my baby. Rise Lentless sells fun coffee mugs for entrepreneurs, side hustlers, all of us that dare to dream.
Used fun and dare to dream. These are two words, folks, that he has made fun of me for saying forever.
That's
forever. Okay?
That is why I put them there. But let's
You know what? If this was a different day and age, I would call you a couple of things, but I'm not gonna.
Are you trying to get us banned from Twitter? Oh my gosh, dude! Or like, are you trying to get us banned from YouTube,
No, 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 I'm
Spotify?
not. All right,
Okay.
all right, all right, all right. Where
He's
are we
like,
going?
listen, my brown power can only get us so far. Okay, you have to keep it. You have to keep it in check. All right.
Brown power.
Right.
What's that?
Start engine. Now this is one of those other fancy stories that Big Man brought to me. I'm not really allowed to bring these stories. You mostly have to stay out of my way when it comes to
That is
things.
true. That is true.
But this is a
But
company
even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. That's all I'm saying.
correct. This is such an interesting website. Start Engine is, I think it's one of the largest, it's not the only, crowdfunding platforms that offers average Joe the opportunity to be a venture capitalist.
Well, so when I brought this story to you, Danny's very first reaction was, "How is this legal?"
And I'm a guy who says nothing should be illegal, right?
But you're right in that. Look, if you don't know, most venture capitalists have to be registered. They have to be, you know what I mean. You have to.
If you have to become this country to invest on a large scale. There's that old adage, the rich get richer. And this is actually one of the reasons this contributes to that, right?
Right.
It's because a lot of these huge venture capital firms, your Sequoias, your Andreessen Horowitz, is these larger firms. They have this propensity and to survive and staying power because they make a lot of medium-sized bets on a lot of companies.
Mm-hmm.
And these are asymmetrical investments. I don't even call them investments. These are bets. Your boy Danny loves to gamble. Okay.
Right.
This is one way you can gamble. It's not a vice. You don't have to hide it from your pastor church.
But you have to become, to even join those companies, you have to become an accredited investor, which means you have to give them a certain amount of money. You have to do a certain amount of things.
And
yada yada.
It also means that you have to have a certain amount of net worth, and you have to have a certain amount of income. In the United States, I think right now you have to be at a minimum of $250,000 a year, or $1 million net worth, or you can make a lot of the asymmetrical investments. People are getting filthy rich, where money is raining from the sky. They're on a yacht off the coast of Fiji doing God knows what with God knows who. Have to be an accredited
That is the
investor.
Definition of rich getting richer, right?
Right.
So what this company has
done
somehow,
by the way, the government is protecting poors. Okay, they're trying to protect the poors from accidentally falling butt backwards into some money,
into $5 million, and then
That's correct. Off of a $100,000 investment.
So somehow this company has bypassed that accredited investor venture capitalist rule.
They haven't bypassed it. This article that I'll link to is they have Reg CF, Reg A+, and Reg D. And there's 3 different regulations. So some of their investments fit into different regulatory compartments.
So they're loopholing it. They're loopholing it somehow, right? And until somebody loses too much or somebody makes too much, they'll probably continue to let it happen. But essentially, you can go to this website. It works very similar to all the other crowdfunding websites, Kickstarter, whatever.
And the reason I asked Big Man, is this legal, is because I literally called a lawyer once, an attorney that I worked with, and I said, hey, I have an idea for a company, a website, where you can list your ideas, startup idea, pre-revenue. It's basically, how do we democratize Shark Tank?
Okay? Right.
Pre-revenue, pre-concept, pre-whatever, and you're just trying to, you're in the prototyping phase, and you're trying to raise $50,000 for prototype, because you're allowed to raise friends and family money that doesn't have the same regulatory burdens that you might from public or money otherwise. And so I was like, how do you do that? And he literally just he emailed me back, and I paid a lot of money just to get the email. And it was basically like, there's no way around it. There's no way you can do this.
Right. Exactly. Which is where like Kickstarter,
right there.
Kickstarter came from and stuff like that, was their ability to loophole it. So Start Engine, you can go on there. Right now it has 100+ different companies. for different prices, starting as low as $100, will sell you shares at different costs. And obviously they have different plans, just like Kickstarter. So here's what got me. I had no idea about Start Engine, where it came from, whatever. I found out about it. Somebody told me about essentially a beer brewing company that was growing.
Okay.
And the link they sent me was on this Start Engine site. And it's basically nothing real new. They call themselves a technology beer company, but really they're a beer company that uses flat screen computers, tablets, to track your data. So if I go and use this company to buy different craft beers, the data behind it is going to start telling them what kind of beers I like, what kind of things like that, and they're going to be able to suggest beers, right? And if I think if it was a $5,000, if I gave them $5,000, I got 5,000 shares and I got a beer named after me, right? That's very Kickstarter-y kind of stuff, right? So it has different levels, but for as little as $100,
whole beer named after you?
Hey, the big man beer. I've always wanted big man beer. Anyway, the point is for $100.
I bet you open the bottle and it's all foam.
It's all foam. For $100, you would get 100 shares of this beer company, right? And if it ever become anything, you would have 100 shares of it, or 200 shares of it, or whatever. Now, that sounds like, hey, that's a great deal, right?
Right.
The problem is this company, by using these loopholes, Start Engine, is not claiming any responsibility for anything. Meaning, you give them $1,000 and that company never shows anything, never makes it to NASDAQ, never whatever.
Anything.
You never see $1, okay?
Right.
You may never see $1. It's highly speculative, right?
So, and let me just say this much. As I've said just a few minutes ago, Danny likes to gamble.
Well, and that's what this is.
So when the big man showed me this website and these people did what I didn't bother to do, which is go, well, this lawyer's an idiot. Find another lawyer, right? Keep talking to people, keep investigating. Okay, figure out how to do this, how to do it. I'm gonna go on here and invest in a couple things.
Well, Start Engine, at the very least, they are doing.
You got
$1,000. Yeah.
Okay. You like I said, you like gamble. This is interesting to me because I could absolutely see myself. I'm just going to tell you a couple things right now that's on the website. A Reg A, it's a Store-in Technologies, renewable energy storage, $480 minimum investment. Autonomous security robots, $500 minimum investment.
Mm-hmm.
A robotics orthopedics company, the future of joint replacement, $250. Right? But, and listen, $250 minimum investment, that's interesting to me. I want to do it. Here's my question. If your idea is so good and you're a believable entrepreneur,
mm-hmm.
You tell me there's a venture capitalist that wants to shower you in money?
Dude, look, Amazon started out as a book selling company,
right?
Right? I mean, we did it not too long ago, right? We talked about how Amazon started, how these different companies started. The point is you. I know you don't like sports references, but in the NFL they talk every day about how.
It's not that I don't like them; I don't get them.
But the point is how there are some NFL people in the Hall of Fame in the NFL that were from Division II and Division III schools, not the big schools. So how are we evaluating talent if somebody makes it to the Hall of Fame that never got a real shot? And one of those is, and they say it every year, this time of year when the draft is around the corner, is how is the NFL evaluating talent any differently today when so many number one draft picks are out of the league in 3 years or whatever? This is the same thing. I think you're gonna have companies that fall through the cracks. Netflix tried to sell themselves to Blockbuster. Netflix almost didn't happen, right? It almost fell apart when they were just mailing DVDs out to people,
right,
and stuff like that. They in the very beginning. So when you think about that, the one thing I was going to say about this company, at least from what I've read so far, prides itself on making sure one thing about these companies, that they're real companies, right? That they're real companies, that they exist. You shouldn't come across anything on here that is not, just a nice fancy somebody threw together a great video, right? You run across these on Kickstarter and some of these other crowdfunding sites. It's very easy to set up.
But the thing about crowdfunding on Kickstarter and other places, that you're not getting any equity. You're just helping somebody make a product and they walk away with the equity, right? You're putting up the capital and you're putting up the risk. And what happens in the end? I think there's a YouTuber, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, and he was just like, there was a cooler that went up on Kickstarter. And guess what happened? Took the Kickstarter money, they developed the cooler. People who put up their money on Kickstarter got the cooler after it went wide and it was on Amazon, and you could just go order one on Amazon Prime. And they were delivering to Amazon Prime customers before they were delivering to Kickstarter customers. By the way, made their business, brought it to fruition with
reality. Yeah, absolutely.
So this is more interesting because I'm buying a piece.
Well, here's the sectors in it, and I'm sure these are by design. What they're calling clean technology, food and beverage, robotics, sports, and transportation.
Oh, I'm
those
interested
are the only
in some
ones.
Of those. Yeah, I'm interested. No,
absolutely. I mean, look, this is, to me, I like you. I was actually really surprised, and we must have caught this very early, because I've seen, other than what my buddy sent me, I've seen no marketing on this.
Right.
I did not know Start Engine as a name. Yeah. You didn't know it, right?
That's correct. I, in this pairing of idiots versus idiots, am the savant. I know everything.
Well, savant's a strong word. But, I mean, not only did you and I not know about it existing at all, you and I didn't think it was possible to exist. And then on top of that, it's got 100+ companies, opportunities on here that of companies I've never heard of. That's very difficult in 2021 to come across something you've never heard of in any fashion. Like, I don't know of an alternate business that's doing this. I don't know of any of that.
And I'd be fascinated to learn more. And like I said, this is
I'm sending an email to Start Engine. Be like, y'all need to sponsor the Idiots versus Idiots podcast. 100%. We've never heard of you, but we need to, and you need help getting your message out, because we're a business news and marketplace podcast that's never heard anything like what you're doing.
Right, absolutely. But nonetheless, I think it's a fascinating concept, and I think it's going to democratize venture capital on both ends of the spectrum, for the investor and for the people who need the capital. And listen, you're right with your NFL comparison, which I understood, that there could be a couple of fledgling ideas out there. Listen, I think it was Kevin O'Leary who's on, like, if you go pull up the website, the first thing you see is his bald, shiny head. And he said, if Elon Musk had come to me with Tesla in its early stages, I would have never given him money. So I guess that kind of, and I'm a value investor. I'm always out there looking for asymmetrical investments. So maybe this is somewhere where this to me makes this website to me makes far more sense than the entire stock market casino.
Some of these investments makes more sense to me than Lucid or Rivian we talked about earlier on this podcast, because for $100 I can buy 100 shares of this beer company or whatever. It might be a more sound investment than anything that I could buy in these car companies for $100. But
absolutely,
look, I will tell you this, I don't know, and again, I said this earlier when we first started, this company, Start Engine, is either going to lose a certain amount of money that draws a red flag, or it's going to make a certain amount of money that's going to draw a red flag. That's the traditional market will come looking, right? They're going to leave it alone until one of those two things happen. And then they're going to go, whoa, 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 whoa.
And in recent memory, all we have to do is look back a few weeks to this company called Robinhood and a stock called GameStop. And all we have to do is look back and go, well, that was interesting. No one could have predicted or foreseen those events.
Right.
And
what did they do? They went, no. But here's the other part of that. I want people, when they look at this kind of
regular. What's that?
When they look at companies like this, and this is investments in general, folks, is you do not have to invest in the next Amazon to get rich.
Right.
People forget that. They think that, again, this goes back to that home run mentality, right? I have to hit a home run. No. You can make a great living off of that company, and that metaphor gets to first base. If they get to be a real company spreading their services out to, they can make a lot of money, and you can be an owner in that, and you can make a lot of money. They don't have to become Amazon or Walmart or, stuff like that to make you a lot of money.
So let me give an example. I love listening to a lot of podcasts about real estate and real estate investing. And I was listening to one, and they're interviewing a guy, and he says, well, I don't actually do any hands-on investment. I spread my investment capital across a handful of different funds. And it just gives me free time and all this other stuff. And he's like, guess what? If I pick the right funds and I spread my money across these funds the correct way, I'm going to get the same kind of returns. You don't have to hit a grand slam every time. You just have to make it to the next level, and then you take that money out. So some of these companies, like when Big Man brought me the story, he's like, listen, some of these companies may never hit the market. They may just get acquired. And guess what?
You still get paid.
Listen, there is nothing more interesting to me than if I invest, the company never gets to market and I get paid anyway. That's a home run to me.
Dude, like the math we were just talking about, whatever beer company it was, again, I don't remember the name on there, and I wouldn't promote them right now and get into all that stuff right now anyway, but the point is they were essentially offering you $1 a share, right? Let's say they don't make it to market. Let's say they make it into, I think they were currently in 2 or 3 restaurants. Let's say they make it into 100 restaurants. Yeah. And then somebody, Anheuser-Busch, whoever, comes in and buys up, basically they're buying their technology. They don't want their beer, but they want the technology that they're in. They're buying up their market share for $500 million, $500 million. Right. I guarantee I'm going to get more than my $1 per share.
Of course.
On that. That's why sometimes these small investments spread out. Again, I would never tell anybody to risk money they don't have. We've talked about it. I wouldn't
tell anybody to invest in something just because I think it's a good idea.
Absolutely. Do your own due diligence.
That's correct, because I have an extremely abnormal view of the world and society. I'm making bets on what I think is correct. Now, let's throw this out there. Again, I love referring back to this in closing of our lovely program here. There was a handful of investors in 2006 and 2007 or 2005, 2006 and 2007 and 2008 betting against the United States' housing market. Mm-hmm. It made absolutely no sense. In the movie Big Short, he skipped the part about where the housing market was entirely inflated by government banks, but get that for a moment.
Still a good movie, done in a very good way.
It's fantastic. There's that scene where Batman goes into the bank. Batman's playing a doctor, and they're laughing at him like, we're a bank. The line was, sir, this is a bank. If you want to give us money, we're going to take it. But no one should bet against the housing market. It doesn't make sense. This was at the height of the boom. And there was somebody there who looked at the fundamentals and said, I'm going to bet against it. And those people walked away with untold sums, untold fortune, incalculable volumes of. So, this is something that you're interested in. This is a rabbit hole that you go down. And you just fall down this rabbit hole. That's the only choice you have. And you go, and it puts you in a position as an investor, as an entrepreneur, to get on the other side of the cash flow quadrant. you're working a job, if you're working from home and like, listen, I don't want to be chained to this desk forever, and you have $5,000, listen, it might be worth it to go out there and play. It might be worth it to you. Say, hey, maybe this is a place, this is a playground where I can play. Sometimes people underestimate the value being a big dog, of being a big fish in a little pond. People highly underestimate the value of being the guy who's doing a thing in a small town. Right?
Well, never underestimate being a guy, a person doing a thing, because action is the only thing that matters in today's world. Okay, so first of all, that's it. You never want to be that person that did nothing and then saw other people that do things succeed, right? It feels horrible, right? We've all done it at some point in our lives. But I would encourage everyone, like you said, to go down the rabbit hole if this is something you're thinking about, because here's the worst that can happen in this case. You invest $100, you go down the rabbit hole, you lose $100, but you learned. $100 is one night of eating out. It's a date night. $100 is less than you would spend to go to a 3-day seminar somewhere, right? Or whatever. So invest in yourself, go down the rabbit hole, and do something.
And let me add this along there too. If you watched people make it rich in crypto, you watched this last stock bubble, and you knew people who got wealthy or made money, made $70,000-$100,000 off of one trade. You're like, dang it, how come that wasn't me? This is your opportunity to be the thing, right? I got into an industry when I was younger, the direct selling or network marketing industry. Never made a penny from it. But the mentality that I garnered from that industry was selling products I don't own, selling products I'm not responsible to maintain or recover or whatever. It completely shifted the course of my life for the better, right? The mentality that I gained from there. And listen, how much money did I spend on the industry? I don't know, $3,000. I've blown $3,000 on way dumber things. So,
you went to college, didn't you?
Yeah, with no upside. There was.
You spent more than $3,000 on college, didn't you? And I bet you there was
somebody else.
But you also somebody spent more than $3,000 on a class that you took that I guarantee you didn't teach as much as what you learned in that experience.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying all college classes, but there was at least one or two that you probably didn't learn as much as you would.
The majority of them. The majority of them.
You know what I mean? So, and again, so I don't want anybody to say Big Man doesn't like degrees or education. I'm a lifelong learner. I believe in education. I just don't know that it's worth $50,000 and don't prepare you for anything.
Boy. Here we go.
But my point still
is, not the rabbit hole. Yeah, that's right.
No,
that's not the rabbit hole we want to go down. I think we've covered everything. I just want to send everyone off here with a life hack. You can add days onto your life and your life expectancy by avoiding videos and articles about life hacks.
God, dear God, at some point we're going to have to stop this. It's just...
No, we're not.
It's awful.
There's no we here. There's only me.
My God, you're an idiot.
You are too.
We'll see you next time, folks.
Bye.